magical, isn't it? Yes, I love the snow.
It's perfect. The lights make it so special.
Daniel Carter never expected that one simple dinner invitation would change his life forever. When his young son excitedly told him he had invited a nice lady from the park over for dinner, Daniel's first reaction was panic. "Ethan, you can't just invite strangers into our home," he said firmly. But Ethan only smiled. "She's not a stranger, Dad, she was just sad." Daniel didn't know what worried him more, the fact that his son had spoken to a stranger, or the strange feeling that something about this situation was about to go very, very wrong. That evening, when the doorbell rang, Daniel opened the door and froze. Because that stranger standing outside wasn't just anyone. She was Sophia Bennett, the powerful CEO of the company where Daniel worked. And what she said next would leave him completely speechless. Daniel Carter's life had been built on responsibility. Ever since his wife passed away, he had taken on two roles, father and provider. His days were filled with work, and his nights were devoted to his son, Ethan. Money was always tight. Daniel worked as a technician at a large corporate firm, fixing equipment and handling maintenance tasks. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. And more importantly, it allowed him to give Ethan a stable life. Ethan, on the other hand, saw the world very differently. Where Daniel saw problems, Ethan saw possibilities. Where Daniel saw strangers, Ethan saw people who might need help. One afternoon, Ethan came running into their small apartment, his face full of excitement. "Dad, I met someone today." Daniel smiled tiredly. "That's nice, buddy." "Who?" "A lady at the park," Ethan said. "She was sitting alone, and she looked really sad." Daniel's expression changed slightly. "And what did you do?" "I talked to her," Ethan said proudly. "I told her she shouldn't be sad because things can get better." Daniel felt a mix of concern and curiosity. "Ethan, you shouldn't talk to strangers like that." "She wasn't scary," Ethan insisted. "She just needed someone to talk to." Daniel sighed. He didn't want to crush his son's kind nature. But the world wasn't always as safe as Ethan believed. Then Ethan said something that made Daniel freeze. "I invited her to dinner." "You what?" Daniel asked, stunned. "She said she didn't have anyone to eat with," Ethan explained. "So I told her she could come here." Daniel ran his hand over his face. "Ethan, we can't just invite random people into our home." "She's not random," Ethan said softly. "She's nice." Daniel didn't know how to respond. Part of him was worried. Another part didn't want to teach his son to ignore people in need. Reluctantly, Daniel agreed, but with caution. "All right," he said finally. "But I'll be here. And we're going to be careful." That evening, Daniel prepared a simple dinner. Nothing fancy, just what they could afford. But he couldn't shake the uneasy feeling in his chest. Who was this woman? Why had she been alone? And why did he feel like something about this situation was bigger than it seemed? At exactly 7 p.m., the doorbell rang. Ethan ran excitedly to the door. "I'll get it." But Daniel stopped him gently. "I will." He opened the door slowly. And in that moment, his entire world shifted. Standing in front of him, dressed simply but elegantly, was a woman he recognized immediately. Sophia Bennett. The CEO of the company where he worked. Daniel's heart nearly stopped. Before he could say anything, Sophia smiled softly. "Hi. I think your son invited me to dinner." Dinner that night was unlike anything Daniel had ever experienced. At first, he was nervous. Extremely nervous. He kept wondering if he had made a mistake by allowing this. But Sophia's presence quickly changed the atmosphere. She wasn't acting like a powerful CEO. She wasn't distant or formal. Instead, she was warm. Quiet. Almost human in a way Daniel had never seen at work. Ethan talked happily, completely unaware of who she really was. "So, why were you sad at the park?" he asked innocently. Daniel almost choked on his water. But Sophia didn't seem offended. She smiled gently. "Sometimes adults have problems they don't know how to solve," she said. Ethan nodded seriously. Like my dad when the rent is due. Daniel closed his eyes briefly in embarrassment. But Sophia didn't laugh. Instead, her expression softened. Yes, she said quietly. Something like that. As the evening went on, Daniel began to understand something. Sophia wasn't there out of obligation. She was there because she needed something. Not money. Not business. Something deeper. At one point, Ethan left the table to grab something from his room. For the first time, Daniel and Sophia were alone. Daniel took a deep breath. "Why did you come?" he asked honestly. Sophia looked down at her hands. "Because your son didn't see me as a CEO," she said softly. She looked up at him. "He saw me as a person." Daniel didn't know what to say. Sophia continued. "Do you know how rare that is?" Daniel thought about it. At work, everyone treated her with fear or admiration. But rarely with genuine kindness. "Ethan told me I shouldn't be sad," she added. And for a moment, I believed him. Daniel felt something shift inside him. This wasn't just a dinner. It was a moment of connection. Later that night, as Sophia prepared to leave, she turned to Daniel. "You've raised an incredible son," she said sincerely. Daniel smiled. "He teaches me more than I teach him." Sophia paused. "People like Ethan remind us of something important." "What's that?" Daniel asked. "That kindness doesn't require permission," she said. As she walked away, Daniel realized something powerful. He had tried to stop his son from inviting a stranger. But that stranger had walked into their home and reminded them both of something they had almost forgotten. That sometimes, the simplest acts of kindness can change everything.